And can you elaborate on why Willa has two hearts?
The hybridization that occurred in certain genetic lineages led to a more efficient system of storing oxygen in the body for the purpose of accessing higher frequency domains and information. The oxygenation of the body is of paramount importance in speeding up the vibrational resonance of the physical form and having the idea of not exactly two hearts, but more chambers in the heart than you have that makes it function as if it's doubled, allows for a more efficient distribution of oxygen throughout the system, and also a greater amount of oxygen throughout the system that then increases the probability of raising the frequency to the exact pitch required for easier connection to higher frequency realms of consciousness and other dimensions of experience.
So just like when Daryl does deep breathing in order to make the connection with you, the idea is that she has a much higher level of oxygen in her system than we do?
Yes, and this is also why we have mentioned from time to time that there is more oxygen on our planet in the atmosphere. Not a lot, but enough that it allows for the stabilization of that frequency to be common.
Okay. Is there a way that you can support elementals in this time of planetary transition, since they seem to have an important role in keeping the Earth in balance?
Well, in a sense, the idea of taking on the role from your side of keeping the Earth in balance and doing the things that will help stabilize the environment in positive ways, increasing the idea of the natural world and making those connections from your side will be something that will also allow them more opportunity to do so from their side. So the whole idea of making the connection with them and taking actions in your reality that are more representative of enhancing the environment, stabilizing the environment in a more natural way, is what you can do from your side while they do what they do from their side. It's not entirely up to them. This has to be a relationship. It has to be, in a sense, a 50-50 proposition.
It just occurred to me that the connection that elementals experience with Earth and nature is a profoundly deep love affair, in a sense.
Yes.
And that the more that you love Earth and you love all the elements of Earth, the more you are putting yourself in a state that's similar to what an elemental might experience.
Exactly. And therefore, like we have said with regard to extraterrestrial contact, you have to meet them halfway. You have to bring your vibrational frequency at least much closer to the level that they operate on in order for you to perceive them and in order for you to interact with them in the ways that will allow for the acceleration of the balance of the natural world of Earth.
Now, one person had an experience where they were with a grove of trees and suddenly shifted to a parallel reality where they realized that the forest is inhabited with tree people. In other words, the people of the forest are the trees, and that they are a community that has very strong bonds, and they're also very welcoming of the human consciousness.
That's why we say that the trees are, in a sense, the ambassadors between humans and the natural world, because they're connected to the idea of physical humans, they're connected to the idea of the elementals, and in a sense they act as the go-between. So they're always welcoming you into their reality to act as, well, for lack of a better term, brokers between the two different civilizations of human and elemental. That's the common bond That's the common frequency. That's the common interface, are the trees.
So they experience each other as individual consciousnesses
And collective, both.
and a collective at the same time. And they have young people and old people, and it's just it's a community of being.
It is. But again, when you say young people and old people, we understand what you mean in terms of time and the growth of trees. Yeah. But don't assign a human perspective to that, because they don't see it exactly in that way. Remember that they can perceive things in parallel realities and multiple dimensions a little bit differently than you can. And the idea of young and old has a particular perspective to them, but it's not exactly the human perspective.
And yet you need the older trees in a forest in order to share their energy with the younger trees.
Yes, yes. But again, all we're simply saying is the terminology that you're using, the definitions that you're using, have a particular human bent to them that is not experienced exactly in the same way by the tree consciousness.
And one last thing about trees, that they seem to have a very generous spirit in general.
Yes.
And their genetics are actually more complex than ours.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
So they are actually highly evolved beings in many respects.
Yes. In fact, the very idea that they are apparently to you immobile requires the extra genetics and the extra abilities, because they can't move away from things like humans can. Therefore, they have to have more adaptability to a variety of situations, hence a more complex genetic structure.
And they communicate with each other chemically, so they let each other know that there's danger or all kinds of communication.
Yes.
That happens.
Yes, yes.
So it's very sophisticated, and yet it's hidden to human consciousness unless you shift your vibration to be able to perceive what is actually happening.
Yes, but it's not hidden on purpose. It is simply the idea of the limitations that human consciousness has placed on itself, because long ago, when humans were much more connected in their understanding of their expression of nature, it wasn't hidden at all. It was understood very clearly.
So that would be Native Americans, Lemurians, those beings were much more...
Early Atlanteans, yes. And not leaving out the idea of people in other parts of your planet, because many of them also had a more natural way of relating to nature.
Yes, I think almost every continent had its share of shamanic beings that were connecting with nature.
Yes, yes, yes. And it was much more common in those societies to understand those things as natural.
Now, one person has a boa constrictor, and he wants to know how to communicate with that being, and if it's possible to create a relationship and an emotional connection between a reptilian being, and I'm talking about actual reptile, and human.
Well, of course it is. So again, many of the things we've already said will apply as well. The idea of the deep emotional bond, the idea of using imagery instead of words. The reptile will also assist you in understanding exactly how to frame those images, how to frame those emotions in its context, in its quote-unquote language.
So you're basically saying, be the snake, and then you will know how to talk to the snake.
In essence, yes, and the snake will help you if it really senses a deep willingness and a deep bond in your consciousness that wishes to do so. So again, this is why it's so important to have that deep, loving, vibrational, harmonic bond, because then the being will sense that you really desire a connection and will help you with that connection by sending the imagery and the feelings as well that will help you understand how to focus in on its particular way of creating a communication.
Okay, I think that's helpful. Let's see. I'm going to switch over to a question having to do with the precursors.
Yes.
And we wanted to give you an opportunity to clarify the idea of whether precursors were actually born here on the planet or whether they are actually
Yes.
extraterrestrial.
We understand that there may have been a slip in translation when we first talked about that concept. And this is why we have recently begun to talk about people born on the planet who have similar hybridized genetics to precursors as being preparers rather than calling themselves precursors. Precursor, by definition, is something that comes before something else. And therefore, since you're already on the planet, you can't be precursors because you're not coming to the planet, you're on the planet. But you can be preparers. And the preparers can exhibit some of the same vibrational frequencies as the precursors. But precursors are born off the planet. They are hybrids from off the planet, are not born on Earth. Who is born on Earth are preparers. We apologize for any confusion in translation.
Did you say your ship is called Nexus? Someone...
No, it's not called Nexus, but the idea is that it can use nexus points in order for its ability to shift location to location. In a sense, any ship that uses that technology can be called a Nexus-style ship.
And was the USFO that crashed at Roswell just as alive as that?
No. Different kind of technology altogether, a little bit more akin to your understanding of technology.
Do stories and fictional universes actually exist in their own right? And we are sort of seeing them and tapping into their energy when we read something or think about them?
They can. Now, that doesn't mean that they're necessarily all experienced in the same kind of physical way that you experience your reality, but that doesn't mean that they're any less real. So when we say that they're all real in one way, shape, or form, you have to understand that that may include a multitude of dimensions, including the spirit realm. So they're not necessarily physical in the way that you know it, but they are real. You are tapping into a real reality on some level of consciousness. Now, again, some of them may be absolutely the way you imagine them, and some of them may be a little bit different. But somewhere along the line, all the attributes are real, whether they all belong in one reality or several.
Okay. One individual, when they were a child, they dreamed that they basically visited inner Earth. And they felt that they were being teased by adults about this idea.
Yes.
Is there an actual inner Earth culture or an inner Earth reality?
Yes, but it's not actually physically in your Earth. It's in another dimension. Many people may mistake the idea that it's inside your Earth physically because of how they may arrive there by going through different portals that sometimes can be underground or in caves or what have you. But without knowing it, they may have actually literally shifted into a different dimensional reality and still assume that they're on the Earth or in the Earth that they were originally on, which they're not until they go back through the portal and come back out onto their original reality, so to speak. But the idea is that there are other dimensions that are perceived as being inside physical objects, such as a planet, but they're not literally there necessarily. They can be, but they're not literally there in your case. So people that find themselves in what they perceive to be inner Earth are actually in another dimension that they've shifted to without necessarily knowing it.
And can you tell us anything about what it's like there?
Well, there are many different kinds of places there. There isn't just one place that people go to. There are shells within shells within shells within shells of dimensions within dimensions within dimensions within dimensions. So it just depends on what frequency you entered the portal in as to where you wind up.
And also what's relevant to your life theme in terms of what information you receive
Yes.
about that environment?
Yes, so there isn't one place I can tell you about.
In fact, aren't most of these things sort of geared towards what will excite us on a deep level based on our own unique?
Well, generally speaking, or they're certainly geared toward the idea of the kind of information that you agreed to participate in the theme of exploration on Earth.
And that's why people have so many different kinds of experiences, because it's all uniquely tailored
Yes,
for their consciousness.
of course it is. How could it be otherwise?
Right? Yes, because you're doing it. This individual is very excited about Atlantis, and
Yes.
he wanted to know, or she, some hot spots to go to tap into Atlantean energy and give themselves the opportunity to receive information there.
Well, certainly the Bahamas, the areas you know as Cuba, the area you know as the Yucatan, and even across the sea, the area that you know as Crete. Some areas in Spain, some areas in the area you call North Africa and ancient Egypt do still have some Atlantean remnants to the ideas of survivors that went there. So any of those places can be energy centers that you can gravitate yourself to based on what you're attracted to do or experience, that can allow you, as a permission slip, more efficacy in tapping into Atlantean information.
And I know the Bimini Road, many people think that it's underwater.
Yes,
and
yes.
You can actually swim along and look at the Bimini Road.
Yes, well, it wasn't originally a road, it's a collapsed wall.
Oh. Yeah, because it just looks like these huge concrete blocks.
Yes.
That stretch on for a long period of time, and you can swim along it.
Yes. Well, if you look on a map that shows you what that area looked like when the water level was lower during the Ice Age, the ocean level was lower, you will see what the actual outline of that main Atlantean island was. And you can see more clearly when the water is lower, where other locations also allowed for cities to be built. But again, remember, even though many people depict the concept of ancient Atlantis as looking sort of Grecian, the true architecture of Atlantis is more the idea of Mayan or Aztec.
And it's quite rural in the sense of the society itself, yes?
Well, in a sense, yes. There were some main city parts, but for the most part, yes, the cities were quite open. There was quite a lot of rural countryside that surrounded them and was utilized for farming and different purposes.
Will a time come where we'll actually be able to, in a sense, see, because our vibration is higher? Like, can you see Atlantis?
Yes.
From your vibrational level?
Absolutely. That's why we're telling you the architecture isn't what most people think.
That's so interesting. So we're capable of achieving that in our lifetime, yes?
Yes, of course.
Well, that's interesting. Okay, so this question has to do with interacting with different versions of a person. And does each version represent a different, distinct soul that you're looking at when you...
If you're talking about the idea of one single body, then no. Doesn't represent different souls. It represents different aspects of the same soul.
Okay. And then when people are a different version because they're in my reality that I prefer, does that different version depend on me, or is there something that they do? So does this mean that if I experience something that I view as negative, it's up to me to change my vibration, which will then give me a different version of that person?
That can happen, yes. But the idea is that you're taking some information from them in your telepathic contact, and you're rendering out of your own energy, out of your own consciousness, a reasonable facsimile, not only of what you're getting from them, but also what you're taking from your own belief systems and what you need to see. So yes, very often changing your frequency, coming from a different place, will allow you to, quote unquote, manufacture a different version of them. because you've shifted to another reality where there already is a different version of them, because now you're coming from a different place, a different frequency, a different reality.
Yeah, occasionally you will actually hear of somebody having a negative interaction with someone and then going into a meditative state, communicating with that person on a higher level in a sense, and balancing their own energy in relation to what was communicated to them, and then going back and reconnecting with the physical person and finding that their behavior has also changed.
Correct, but the truth is their behavior hasn't changed because the person they're dealing with is actually a different person.
Okay, so they're getting another version of that person.
Because they're in a different parallel version of Earth, yes.
It's very interesting because it really does shift the focus back to your own personal responsibility, but at the same time, you're not to blame for other people's negative behavior, or the fact that you see another person's negative behavior does not mean that's a one-on-one reflection of your own negativity.
Correct. The issues that other people may have that you attract into your life may have nothing to do with your issues, but there's a reason why they're there. It might be because you need to help them. It might be because you need to act as a sounding board in some way or a reflection to them for their issues, whether they know it or not. But generally speaking, though it can sometimes be a one-to-one reflection, it isn't always. You have to have the discernment to be able to tell what's actually going on and why that person has been attracted or at least allowed by you into your life.
Yes, and the idea is what you do with the transmission or the receipt of information from that person.
Absolutely.
It puts it back in your court that what you do with it will determine the effect that you get out of it.
Yes, because no matter how the situation originated, whether it was created from negativity, no matter what anyone else's experience or opinion is or perspective is of the situation, you still get to determine how the situation will affect you because you're the one affecting yourself with your relationship and definition of that particular situation. So you can always get a benefit no matter what happens, depending on what you choose to do in relation to that circumstance.
And when people die at the same time, like in a plane crash or something like that, do they have an awareness of the other people who are transitioning at the same time that they do?
Sometimes, not always. Again, it depends upon their vibrational path.
Yeah, it's just so interesting, like that a whole group of people would get on a plane and when it crashes, they're all transitioning simultaneously.
Yes. Well, it's not really, if you stop and think about it, any more mysterious than all the people getting on the plane because they happen to be going to the same city. It's just that they're going to a city they didn't necessarily realize they were going to.
Yeah. That's intense.
Well, again, it's no more mysterious than the kind of orchestration that happens when you get on any particular kind of a device. So again, the orchestration of getting a certain amount of people on a certain vehicle to go to a certain city is an orchestration. This is no different.
And it's also if the people may not be aware that they've chosen that, but at some level, they've taken the exit in a sense.
Yes.
For whatever their specific purpose was or reason was, or it was their time.
Whether they know it or not, they have bought a ticket to that particular destination in a coordinated orchestration with the others. Those that haven't, you will find, as you often hear, will find themselves not necessarily getting on that plane for one reason or another synchronistically.
Yeah, this certainly brings back memories of the 9/11 situation.
Yes. And again, none of this excuses the perpetration of these particular kinds of events, but people will take advantage of whatever they need to take advantage of for a variety of reasons. And remember that sometimes those reasons are a higher level of themselves may be willing to go out that way to help the people that remain behind realize how to make sure things like that aren't necessarily opportunities for people in the future ever again. Because there are many ways that you can leave physical reality. It does not have to be through the idea of disaster or terrorism or anything like that. You will find a way when it's your time to find a way. But the idea can be that certainly those kinds of ways don't need to be the ways if you feel that that is too disruptive to the psyche that allows you to find a peaceful situation in your reality.
So, is there anything we can do to consciously choose the way we die instead of it just randomly happening when the time is right?
Well, yes, of course there is. There are several ways. But the idea, of course, is you don't necessarily have to pay attention to that, or you don't really have to necessarily know about that. If there is purpose, then yes, you can know. A well-known story on your planet comes from an individual known as Cochise, who knew the exact time of his death and predicted it. But again, it's not always important that you know that. If there is purpose to it, you will know. But again, the only way it's most likely you will know, if you need to know, is by, guess what? Following the formula.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Because anything, any kind of information that is truly relevant for you to know about on your journey, on your path, will come to you when you follow the formula, because the formula leaves nothing relevant out.
For example, like with Steve Irwin, he was definitely following his passion when he was swimming with that stingray.
Yes.
And yet that turned out to be the way that he was going to exit the planet.
And many people will choose to do that while they're doing something they love to do. In a sense, they're, quote unquote, dying happy.
Yeah. Okay, so that's a good way to approach it then. Do what excites you the most with integrity and following all the other elements of the formula. And if it is your time, that will, at least you will go out doing something you love doing.
Absolutely. If you want to put it in those pragmatic terms, that can work. Again, please do remember that when you do transition, you will understand exactly why you may have chosen that path, and it'll be perfectly fine.
And so energetically and mechanically speaking, what does it mean to be grounded or ungrounded?
Well, again, in true alignment with yourself is grounding. Misalignment, being out of alignment with yourself, is ungrounding, for lack of a better term, to put it in the most simplistic way.
So in a sense, when you follow a shamanic path, do you need to keep a foot in both worlds, so to speak?
As long as you find that it is not your time to transition, then automatically yes, because any shaman or anyone in balance acts like a link or a bridge between the physical and non-physical realities. So yes, you're automatically a bridge. Therefore, 1 foot in each realm is exactly what needs to happen.
And that's a skill unto itself.
Yes, it is. It's an art like any.
And can you elaborate on why Willa has 2 hearts?
The hybridization that occurred in certain genetic lineages led to a more efficient system of storing oxygen in the body for the purpose of accessing higher frequency domains and information. The oxygenation of the body is of paramount importance in speeding up the vibrational resonance of the physical form and having the idea of not exactly 2 hearts, but more chambers in the heart than you have that makes it function as if it's doubled, allows for a more efficient distribution of oxygen throughout the system, and also a greater amount of oxygen throughout the system, that then increases the probability of raising the frequency to the exact pitch required for easier connection to higher frequency realms of consciousness and other dimensions of experience.
So just like when Daryl does deep breathing in order to make the connection with you, the idea is that she has a much higher level of oxygen in her system than we do?
Yes, and this is also why we have mentioned from time to time that there is more oxygen on our planet in the atmosphere. Not a lot, but enough that it allows for the stabilization of that frequency to be common.
Okay. Um, is there a way that you can support elementals in this time of planetary transition, since they seem to have an important role in keeping the Earth in balance?
Well, in a sense, the idea of taking on the role from your side of keeping the Earth in balance and doing the things that will help stabilize the environment in positive ways, increasing the idea of the natural world and making those connections from your side will be something that will also allow them more opportunity to do so from their side. So the whole idea of making the connection with them and taking actions in your reality that are more representative of enhancing the environment, stabilizing the environment in a more natural way, is what you can do from your side while they do what they do from their side. It's not entirely up to them. This has to be a relationship. It has to be, in a sense, a 50-50 proposition.
It just occurred to me that the connection that elementals experience with Earth and nature is a profoundly deep love affair, in a sense.
Yes.
And that the more that you love Earth and you love all the elements of Earth, the more you are putting yourself in a state that's similar to what an elemental might experience.
Exactly. And therefore, like we have said with regard to extraterrestrial contact, you have to meet them halfway. You have to bring your vibrational frequency at least much closer to the level that they operate on in order for you to perceive them and in order for you to interact with them in the ways that will allow for the acceleration of the balance of the natural world of Earth.
Now, one person had an experience where they were with a grove of trees and suddenly shifted to a parallel reality where they realized that the forest is inhabited with tree people. In other words, the people of the forest are the trees, and that they are a community that has very strong bonds, and they're also very welcoming of the human consciousness.
That's why we say that the trees are, in a sense, the ambassadors between humans and the natural world, because they're connected to the idea of physical humans, they're connected to the idea of the elementals, and in a sense they act as the go-between. So they're always welcoming you into their reality to act as, well, for lack of a better term, brokers between the two different civilizations of human and elemental. That's the common bond. That's the common frequency. That's the common interface, are the trees.
So they experience each other as individual consciousnesses.
And collective, both.
And a collective at the same time. And they have young people and old people, and it's just it's a community of being.
It is. But again, when you say young people and old people, we understand what you mean in terms of time and the growth of trees. Yeah. But don't assign a human perspective to that, because they don't see it exactly in that way. Remember that they can perceive things in parallel realities in multiple dimensions a little bit differently than you can. And the idea of young and old has a particular perspective to them, but it's not exactly the human perspective.
And yet you need the older trees in a forest in order to share their energy with the younger trees.
Yes, yes. But again, all we're simply saying is the terminology that you're using, the definitions that you're using, have a particular human bent to them that is not experienced exactly in the same way by the tree consciousness.
And one last thing about trees, that they seem to have a very generous spirit in general.
Yes.
And their genetics are actually more complex than ours.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
So they are actually highly evolved beings in many respects.
Yes. In fact, the very idea that they are apparently to you immobile requires the extra genetics and the extra abilities, because they can't move away from things like humans can. Therefore, they have to have more adaptability to a variety of situations, hence a more complex genetic structure.
And they communicate with each other chemically, so they let each other know that there's a danger or all kinds of communication
Yes.
that happens.
Yes, yes.
So it's very sophisticated, and yet it's hidden to human consciousness unless you shift your vibration to be able to perceive what is actually happening.
Yes, but it's not hidden on purpose. It is simply the idea of the limitations that human consciousness has placed on itself, because long ago, when humans were much more connected in their understanding of their expression of nature, it wasn't hidden at all. It was understood very clearly.
So that would be Native Americans, Lemurians, those beings were much more.
Early Atlanteans, yes. And not leaving out the idea of people in other parts of your planet, because many of them also had a more natural way of relating to nature.
Yes, I think almost every continent had its share of shamanic beings
Yes.
that were connecting with nature.
Yes, yes, yes. And it was much more common in those societies to understand those things as natural.
Now, one person has a boa constrictor and he wants to know how to communicate with that being and if it's possible to create a relationship and an emotional connection between a reptilian being, and I'm talking about actual reptile, and human.
Well, of course it is. So again, many of the things we've already said will apply as well. The idea of the deep emotional bond, the idea of using imagery instead of words. The reptile will also assist you in understanding exactly how to frame those images, how to frame those emotions in its context, in its quote-unquote language.
So you're basically saying be the snake, and then you will know how to talk to the snake.
In essence, yes.
I'm wondering, aside from parallel lives, is it possible to have simultaneous physical realities in the same time frame or time-space point?
This is what is called counterparts that we were discussing a few moments ago, yes.
Okay, and how many of those can you have? Is there a limit?
It depends upon how you are arranging yourself and what themes you are exploring.
Okay. I was under the understanding that you can't actually, I mean,
Let me put it
technically.
to you this way. You can do the math, all right?
Okay.
Of the approximately 7 billion people on your planet as physical individuals, there are only about 350,000 to 400,000 oversouls.
Okay.
So do the math.
Right. Right.
That's an average. It fluctuates a bit, but that's an average.
Okay. And I was under the understanding that if you had a counterpart, that you wouldn't actually ever meet them.
It depends. Sometimes you might not. It depends upon the themes you're exploring and how it would serve you to meet or not meet them. And sometimes you may run into a counterpart and fall in love with them, and sometimes you may hate their guts.
Okay.
Now, I'm being a little euphemistic because I certainly don't promote that idea. But nevertheless, knowing how you humans operate, you may simply find that you don't prefer some of your own counterparts. And that vibration may simply be for the purpose of keeping you apart. You understand?
Yes. Okay. Do I have any counterparts?
Yes.
How many? 5. And they're all still living at this time?
That's why I gave you that answer.
5.
If they were not still living, they wouldn't be counterparts.
I feel like I experienced one of them passing in the last year.
Sometimes that happens. As
Was-
you say, ships in the night.
Okay. So that is in fact what that,
Yes.
okay.
Sometimes you will sense it, sometimes you will not.
Okay. Thank
Does
you.
that help you?
That does help me. Thank you.
Why, thank you.
I have one more question.
Oh, all right.
For most of my life, I have had vivid dreams,
Yes.
many of them with different types of UFOs.
Oh, all
and
right.
I find that the transitioning back
Yes.
is very difficult to physically awake.
Oh, all right.
And I'm,
That's because your physical reality is so much more dense.
yeah.
And
Okay.
therefore, you are attempting to insert yourself and lower your vibration again to match that physical dense reality. So it can feel a little thick, yes.
Okay.
Can be like trying to push through molasses, yes.
Is there a way that I could continue to have these adventures and vivid memories of my dreams?
Of course.
While still waking up feeling
Yes.
not so exhausted?
It requires that you allow yourself a higher degree of lucidity in the dream. Because once you allow a higher degree of lucidity in the dream, you can recognize that you can allow a higher degree of lucidity in physical life. And that can allow you to, shall we say, control the vibration of the physical reality in a way to make it more compatible with your reinsertion. Does that help you?
Yes.
Let us explain very clearly that this is actually what our civilization has done. As we have said, when the soul decides to have an incarnation, and I'm speaking euphemistically here, symbolically in a sense, but there's some reality to it, vibrationally speaking, energetically speaking, the idea of the soul is that it splits itself into the higher mind and the physical mind. And those two together in balance, in harmony, form the whole person that will have the experience of that incarnation. The higher mind remaining non-physical to guide the physical mind in that sense, like someone standing on the mountaintop so that it can give a broad view perspective to the physical mind down in the valley so it won't fall into so many holes because it can't really see where it's going. In between the two is what we call the template level reality, the actual place where the soul and the higher mind create the blueprint, lay out the blueprint for the themes you will explore, literally construct, in a sense, the physical reality blueprint of what will manifest in your physical life. When you go into a dream state, you're going, in a sense, to the template level reality. And if you are lucid in it and understand that you're awake in the dream, then you can actually use the template level blueprint to rearrange and reorganize the physical reality that you reinsert yourself back into. So the more lucidly you are in that state, the more lucid, in a sense, you can make your physical reality, or at least more in alignment with the lucidity you're having in the dream state. And again, this is what our civilization has done, because once we allowed ourselves to understand how to become truly lucid in the dream state, we never went back. We simply, from there, altered the physical reality blueprint to become more aligned with that state of dream lucidity, and therefore we are always asleep and always awake, and that's why we never sleep. We live in the dream, and that is our reality. It's totally lucid. Does that make sense to you?
That's fantastic.
So the more you can gain lucidity in your dream by whatever variety of permission slips and techniques may be available to you on your planet, of which there are many, the more you'll be able to create physical reality, since physical reality is also just a dream, to become more lucid and match the vibration of the dream lucidity and create less and less and less difference between the two until they, in a sense, become one reality. Does that help you?
That does help me.
Pleasant dream.
Thank you. And I have another question about the amount of UFOs that actually are in my dreams.
Yes.
Could you explain what's going on there?
Well, please understand that there are many comings and goings and many different dimensions in which different beings are traveling in a variety of ways. Most of this is simply invisible to you, but when you expand your senses, suddenly you realize that there's all this activity going on all the time. You suddenly realize that you have, for most of your life, actually been living under an airport. It's just that you haven't been able to see the planes. Now, as you expand your senses, you suddenly realize all the traffic that actually exists in the area that you're in. Understand?
Yes.
So it's not necessarily that there has been more activity, there's just more awareness on your part of the activity that's always been there.
Okay.
Does that help?
It does. Usually in the dreams, my initial reaction is excitement.
Yes.
And then when it comes...
Followed by what?
With fear. It
About
comes
what?
to me more directly after the initial viewing of it and the
Yes.
excitement. It comes to me directly,
Yes.
and then I completely freak out.
Because?
I
What
don't
are you afraid
know.
of?
I'm not sure.
Yes, you are. Can't lie to us. No fibbing allowed. Of course you are. It's very easy to find out what you are afraid of by giving in to the fear, by asking the question, by magnifying and amplifying it. If I gave in to this vibration, if I truly recognized this reality, if I allowed myself to truly become who I prefer to be, what am I afraid is the worst, most terrifying, most horrifying, fearful thing I am afraid might happen? And when you're willing to hear the answer, you'll know why you're afraid.
Okay.
But the idea is that whenever you find out what that fear is, it's not something that will ever be actually empirically true about you. It will only reveal a belief you have about yourself that can be changed. Because there is nothing to fear. The only thing, I guarantee you, the only thing you will ever discover in the unknown is more of you. Because you fill everything in your reality. Mm-hmm. It's just that there are parts of yourself you don't know yet, you haven't met yet. But you will discover them, and there's no need to fear them. Does that help?
Yes.
All right.
Am I a hybrid?
All of you are hybridized to one degree or another. That's what a human is. Remember, because there was an early, naturally evolved hominid on your planet that was genetically altered by extraterrestrial races to become Homo sapien, you're all hybridized. The branches of the original hominid that were not hybridized continue to evolve. You now know them today as Sasquatch. If you had never been hybridized, you would all be Sasquatch. That was the natural evolutionary form on Earth. And it continued to evolve right alongside of you. However, they evolved so closely with nature, so intuitively with nature, so in connection with nature, they can actually go from one dimension to another like walking through a door, and that's why they're hard to find. Mm-hmm. But that's the natural denizen, that's the original inhabitant of Earth. You, in a sense, are an alteration. You're a hybridization of that.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes. I feel like the fear that comes over me in the dream is the connection that I have directly with these UFOs and these
But why would
beings.
that be something to fear?
Well, because I would have to face it and accept it and
why would that
own
be
it.
difficult?
I think it's...
I have a great connection.
Yes.
And I love it.
And I love listening to it.
Why don't you love being it or having it?
I don't know.
Yes, you do. You'll find out that you know when you are willing to ask the question. What am I afraid will happen if I acknowledge the connection?
I'm afraid of being seen that way.
By whom?
Others, the world. I don't know.
Who cares?
Well, right.
Who cares?
I agree.
The
to
ones
some
that would
extent.
see and understand it will understand it.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that would see and not understand it will never understand it. So what do you care?
Yes.
Why are you measuring yourself against others? You have absolutely no business comparing yourself to anyone else because you are absolutely unlike anyone else. All of you are. You actually have not only no business comparing yourself to anyone else, you actually have no capability of comparing yourself to anyone else because you're all unique.
Yes.
I understand you have some degree of similarity, but that's it. You're never going to be exactly like anyone else. So there is absolutely nothing anyone else could say that is in any way, shape, or form relevant to you except what you believe is relevant to you. And the only reason you would be afraid of what others think is because you know that all they're doing is reflecting what you already think of yourself. Mm. So if you don't prefer the things you think of yourself, change that. And when you change what you think of yourself, you will not give a whit what other people think of you. You can always use guidance to make sure that other people are reflecting things to you that you could use as information to keep yourself on track. I'm not saying you have to ignore everyone and not listen to them, because they may be saying things that are wisdom for you. But it's up to you to decide what's true for you and what's not. Mm-hmm. Totally. Make sense?
Absolutely.
So again, no matter what anyone says, when you allow yourself to be who you are, thank them for offering you a different perspective. It's just not a perspective that you feel like agreeing with today. But they are totally entitled to their perspective, because you would never disallow or invalidate what they perceive to be true. Because if you invalidate them, why should they validate you?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But again, the irony and the paradox is you don't need them to validate you. And by not needing them to validate you, you are capable of validating yourself and everyone else, no matter how different their perspective of you might be from your own. Do you see the paradox here?
Yes.
Do you see how to use the power of the paradox in this?
I do.
Does this help you?
Very much so.
Why, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there another person whose name?
Hi, Bashar.
And you good day.
I'd like to ask, we're all trying to figure out
You are all what?
We're all trying to
You
figure
are all what? We are selectively deaf to certain words. Trying is one of them.
We are working
You're either
on,
doing something or you're not.
we are working on
Yes?
figuring out what our reality is.
You are figuring out what your reality is
And
in your own way. You're not working on it. You're not trying to work on it. You're figuring it out in your own way.
and that's where I could use some help.
All right. What help would you like?
Well, I understand the concept of parallel reality.
Are you sure?
It's kind of a new concept for me.
All right, and you understand it just like that. Congratulations.
But I could use some additional help.
In what way?
I just stumbled into some information on the history of the human race,
Yes.
the starting from the beginning,
Yes.
how Earth was formed and what it was originally intended for, and I'm trying to discern, is that real reality or is that my reality?
All realities are real. The question is not, are the realities real? Anything you can imagine is somehow, in some way, shape, or form, a real experience, because you can't imagine non-existence. It's not possible. So anything you can imagine has some relevance and some reality somewhere. The question isn't, is it real? The question is it relevant for you? And you are the one to decide whether it is or not. Because if you shift, as you do, all of you, billions of times per second from parallel reality to parallel reality to parallel reality, you are shifting from one version of Earth to another, 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 constantly, in order to create the side effect you call space and time. So at any moment, you're actually on a different Earth with a different history. You decide by your vibration which version of Earth you will experience. So if one version doesn't seem to have a lot of relevance to you, one history doesn't seem to be relevant to you, then allow yourself to know that another version probably is more relevant to you. It's not that they're not all true, it's just that you are allowing yourself to experience whichever one is relevant for the themes you chose to explore. But all of them are true. Does that help? Or did that just confuse you even more?
Well, I could probably use some clarification. The information I have is that this is regarding the Anunnakis.
Yes.
And I don't choose to have that reality, but I'm experiencing.
Well, obviously, in some senses you do, or you wouldn't be where you are.
Okay, got it. I'll
All
figure
right.
that part out.
But you can choose your relationship to that idea in a way that only benefits you in positive ways, yes?
Yes.
So, then if you know that you can always choose a version that benefits you in positive ways, why worry about what other versions there may be if they have nothing to do with you?
I actually don't think there's any other version because I've only stumbled into one version.
There is no just one version. There are an infinite number of versions of everything you can imagine. You will gravitate to the one that is most in alignment with your particular chosen vibration based on your belief systems. Simple as that. That doesn't mean the other ones don't exist.
Okay.
But you only experience the one at any given moment that's relevant for you, and that's why it seems like there's only one. Remember, every belief system is structured to make it seem as if no other belief is possible. If that were not true, you wouldn't be able to have an experience in physical reality. Yes?
Okay.
Makes sense?
Yes, it
All
does.
right. So
I have a lot of sorting out to do.
well, all right. That sounds like fun.
I hope
It will
it
become
is.
clearer as you understand the concept.
Okay. I have a question regarding dreams.
Yes.
I don't have dreams.
Yes, you do.
I don't remember them.
All right.
Are they really necessary to remember?
No,
Okay. Great.
they are only necessary to have.
Why is that?
Because when you go into dream, because of your definitions of physical reality, making it seem as if you're disconnected from the spirit self, you go into the dream state to shut down the physical mind so you can reconnect consciously to the idea of your greater self and recharge yourself. And without that, without dreaming, you would actually go into psychotic shock because you're relying totally on the physical mind, which cannot exist on its own. It has to connect, it has to connect, it has to connect to the higher mind somehow in consciousness. And therefore, when you're not connecting consciously in your daily life, you will connect unconsciously in your dream state in order to maintain the balance of your total being. Because without the idea of making that connection, you are not functioning as a whole being. The physical mind by itself is literally a half-wit.
Is it necessarily to consciously remember your dreams? I mean, we've already hooked on unconscious.
No, as I just said, as long as you have an unconscious connection, that will suffice. Sometimes it might be necessary to remember certain things if it serves the theme you're exploring, but you don't necessarily have to remember them all.
Okay.
Does that help you?
Yeah, yes, it does.
All right, well, pleasant dreams to you, if
I'm
you
sure
remember
will
them.
be. Yes. And then I also wanted to find out, there's a lot of people that are trying to connect with their past lives,
All lives exist simultaneously.
the lives that are called past lives.
I know what you meant.
How can you give us some tools on how to connect with these lives?
You're already connected. You're already receiving information and downloads from all the experiences of the ones that are relevant to the life you've chosen here. So it's not about how do I connect, it's how do you have more awareness that you're already connected. That's a big difference. When you understand you're already connected, that fact alone, if it actually is perceived by you as a fact, will or perhaps can make all the difference in your experience of those connections. Because if you know you're already connected and you take that for granted, then you don't have to try to connect. Trying to connect implies that you believe you're not connected. Knowing you're already connected gives you a head start, and thus then makes it easier for you to perceive the connections that are already there instead of believing you have to do something that you don't know how to do already. Big difference.
I guess my question would be then, how do I recognize that I'm already connected?
I just told you.
I'm
Do you
sorry.
understand that everything exists all at once?
Yes.
Do you? If you really understand the concept that everything is actually here and now, then the real question is, how can you not know that you're connected? If you don't know that you're connected, then you don't really understand that everything is one and here and now. Because with a true understanding of that, it automatically is understood that everything is connected. Why? Because everything is the same one thing from a different point of view. So if everything is the same one thing, how can it actually be disconnected? There is only one thing in existence. Only one. There's only one moment in existence. Only one. What you perceive as different moments are the same moment from a different point of view. So it's not even that you have separate things that are connected. There is only one thing. Therefore, connection is built in. Because every apparently different thing is just an appearance of difference. It doesn't actually different. It's just the appearance of difference. It's just the experience of difference. But mechanically speaking, there is only one thing. That's it.
Is there a way for me to, I guess, some tools where I could,
I just gave you a very powerful one.
I'm sorry, I'm missing it.
Yes, you are. There is no such thing as being actually separate. There is the illusion of separateness, the experience of separateness, but there is no such thing mechanically as actually being separate. There is only one thing in existence, and that's it. And you are that thing. And you are that thing. And you are that thing. You are all the same thing from a different point of view. It's just reflections, different looking reflections of the same thing seeing itself in all the ways that it can. So if you understand that what appears to be different people are actually the same being, how can it not be connected? There's only one being. What is there else to connect to? Nothing. Everything is within you. There is no outside. Is this making more sense?
Not really, but if I can,
Yes.
give an example.
By all means.
So let's say all of a sudden I'm by a swimming pool and I'm taking my first beginner swimming class,
Yes.
and all of a sudden I get really scared and I don't want to go in the water.
Yes.
I've never had any water experience, so I don't understand why I'm afraid. So would it be safe to say that that fear of water may be something that is from one of my other selves?
It might be, but it doesn't have to be. The fear of water may connect symbolically to some fear you have in your definitional system in this life too. Even if it's not literally a fear of water, the water may symbolically represent something you are afraid of. Many of you already know, psychologically speaking, that water is symbolically representative of emotion. So the idea may be that you have a fear within you or a fear of some emotion within you that the water simply symbolizes. And it could be many other things. You have to take it on a case-by-case basis.
Can you expand on your comment, water is symbolically representative of emotion?
Well, this is simply what comes up in your natural psychological experiences, in what you call your psychological information. The idea of emotion, energy in motion. Emotion is fluid. Thus it is symbolized with the idea of water, diving deep down into your emotionalities, like sinking under the surface of the sea or a pool. It's like allowing yourself to be immersed in the idea of your consciousness. And this has feeling components to it. And thus it has emotional components to it. It's like being immersed, like a child, in the amniotic fluid, and feeling the idea of the support and the unconditional love of the mother, or feeling the fear of the mother. So it could even come from that. Going into a pool could be reminiscent of being in the amniotic fluid and feeling the fear of your own mother before you were born. It could be many things. You have to find out what it is for you by exploring your belief systems about why you have fear. And then the answer will come. The idea will come. It will show you. The synchronicity in your life will show you what the connection is. All right?
Okay,
But you have to be willing to explore that and not be afraid to explore it.
great, thank you.
You have to swim in that water. All right?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
It's about 12:26. If we want, we can have another 10 or 15 minutes if you want to continue, or if you'd rather break for lunch, Tadeo.
It is our perception that the majority of individuals in your chamber require sustenance. Thus then, you may take your lunch break. We will resume this transmission after your break. How's it going?
Very good. Thank you, Daryl.